Hey, coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Mike Adams is with us. He was with us 11 years ago, and man, there's been a lot of progress in the last 11 years in rapid response radio. This is a radio station in a backpack now, even with a small 15-watt transmitter, and it's to go into disaster areas where people need information. Do I boil my water or not? Where do I pick up diapers? How do I get my kids, from the daycare center? Yeah, how do I do these things? And Mike's got some great stories to tell and some practical information that he's giving away on what should go into such a kit. It's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Air, featuring Playout One radio automation software, comprehensive streaming solutions, website content management, and social media tools for maximum listener engagement on the web at AIIR.com. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone. There we go. There's the microphone. To the light bulb at the top of the tower. Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack. So delighted that you're here. It is our second show of the new year of 2026, episode 782. We've been doing this for over 16 years now, and I've just had a blast, and I hope you have too. We've got another good show for you today. We've worked hard on putting this together, and I'll introduce our guest in just a minute. Just for context, and not that it matters. It doesn't matter where I am, but I'm not in this studio behind me. I'm actually in Pontevedra, Spain, still spending holidays with the family here, and we're getting ready to go back home, back to Nashville, Tennessee. But for now, we're in Spain. So I appreciate the family giving me the TV room to do the show in the day, and fantastic internet. You wouldn't believe. I mean, this is just. We're in an apartment, okay, a pretty average kind of apartment, and we have internet here that is literally this much shy of a gig up and down, and it's cheap. They got some bundles here. I'm amazed at what the competition does for the marketplace. They get high-speed internet via fiber. They get mobile phone service for one or two phones, and they get the TV service, and then the company that they're getting the internet from actually threw in a 70-inch color TV. Of course, it's color. 70-inch TV, which is now hanging in the guest bedroom. So, wow, these internet companies here really want your business. Okay, enough of that intro. We're going to bring back a guest who has been with us before. A long time ago, and he's going to be with us again. I think it was about 11 years ago. Let's bring in our guest, and that is Mike Adams. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Welcome in.
Hi, Kurt. So also in Western Europe here, based in the UK now. So we were nearly in the same time zone. Great connect when you came over here to where the sunshine is.
It's just occurred to me, Mike, you do not have a British accent.
This is true. This is true. I'm from the top left corner of America. Dad was a Boeing guy. Our family's from Seattle, Washington. My wife is English. We're based in the UK now.
So you chose to live in England because of your wife and her family, yeah?
Grandchildren. It's all about the grandchildren. When you're at the age we are and you get a little bit of gray hair, there's grandchildren, and you got to be where they are. Yeah. I
have got 3 tricycle motors just down the hall from where I'm sitting right now. Their grandma, my wife, Carmen, is keeping them nice and quiet in the kitchen, watching. I think they're watching Paw Patrol right now. Oh my goodness. Well, Mike, last time you were with us, what did we talk about? It was something about like instant pop-up radio stations that could be put up when and where needed.
Yes, I think it was early 2014, and I had just come back from the super typhoon in the Philippines. So I work for a faith-based broadcaster, Far East Broadcasting Company. So for 40 years, I worked for Far East Broadcasting, and we had a disaster response arm called First Response Radio. And So as we're pre-recording the day after Boxing Day, it was the Boxing Day tsunami 21 years ago, very nearly today, which mobilized our disaster response team to building radio stations in the middle of disaster zones. And when we did our last call, we had just finished responding to that super typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. 1 million homes were destroyed or partially destroyed. It was and the role of radio was really huge. And we were the first radio station on the air, first radio or TV station, the first broadcast station back on the air after the typhoon on day 6. And so that's what we were talking about, the state of play, where things were 11 years ago. Since then, I've recently retired and moved on and doing some freelance work and continue to work in disaster radio. But the question is, how do you build a radio station and get it on the air in the middle of a disaster zone within 72 hours of the disaster striking? That was the challenge.
Yeah, right. And we're going to hear about that response. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I still feel the emotion going back 21 years, being on the ground in the tsunami, in the worst part in Indonesia, in Aceh, and just getting on the ground and getting it going, just get it on the air and try to figure it out. We were inexperienced. We were way in over our heads on the deep end, sort of, and we began to figure it out. We began to put together our process. And so that's what we've come to. We've spent 21 years doing it now. I've retired from first response radio and my paid job with the radio mission, and have launched rapid response radio, just doing capacity building, training everybody else to do what we've learned in 20 years.
Wow. We're going to have Mike Adams as our guest here over the next hour, we're coming up on. And Mike's going to tell us about rapid response radio and give us, a lot of hints as to how to do this ourselves, if that's needed. If you viewers, if you're an engineer and you do some consulting and you want to do some real good and you want to help people out, pay attention to this episode, because Mike's going to basically give us not only stories of how this works and what he's done, but also how to do it yourself. So that's all coming up. Our show this week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by our friends at AIR, AIIR.com. We're going to start with Mike's story and information that you need coming right up after this.
Hey, it's Kirk Harnack, and I'm here with Ricky Lee, the CEO of AIR. Ricky, you guys make a fantastic automation system, but streaming is a really big deal. Tell me about streaming with AIR.
It really is. We've got a beautiful streaming platform with an incredible dashboard with fantastic analytics. And you can buy it for just $20 a month. All you can eat. No limits on bandwidth or bit rates. And you can also record shows as well. So if you like to deliver on-demand content for $20 a month, you can stream and deliver that on-demand content to an RSS feed that can feed your radio player, your mobile apps, or a podcast that people can download and enjoy.
Now, $20 a month, that must be for just some slow MP3, right?
No, MP3, AAC, and we also now support HLS, which is big in the industry right now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. How do I start to explore or find out more about streaming through AIR?
You go to air.com, AIIR.com/streaming, and from there, with a credit card, you can sign up and get started.
Thanks a lot to AIR and Ricky Lee and the whole staff there, Dave Brierly Jones and everyone at AIR, AIIR, 2 I's.com. And they're also the makers of the Playout One automation system. And I'm delighted that my 21 radio stations are users of Playout One. Love it. They're great. And the tech support is just awesome. So thanks a lot to AIR for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right. On with us is Mike Adams, formerly with, let's see, the first name of the company, or the previous that you worked with was?
First response radio.
First response.
It starts with first.
That's right. And now it's rapid response radio is what you're doing now.
Rapid response radio.
Yeah. Well, listen, we kind of set things up in our first short segment, and now we've got time for explanation. Please, Mike, if you want to, just take the show where you want to go and tell us what we need to know to get some background, and then we'll get into a little bit later on what to do next if you want to do this.
Okay, so I'll start with just a little background story, and then I'll tell you when we're ready to have some of the slides or pictures come in. Mm-hmm. So 21 years ago, when the tsunami struck, I'm sitting in my living room watching what's happening on TV with the Asian tsunami. And we had thought about it. We'd thought kind of deeply about how can we use all our radio networks across Asia that regularly do radio and work in disaster-prone places to be on the air in the middle of a disaster. But nobody really wanted to fund, the preparedness work. And sometimes, the background work that it's hard to sell disaster preparedness when there is no disaster. But when the tsunami struck, we just knew we had to get on with it. We needed to get out the door. We needed to, being unprepared, we needed to do the best we could. And so our experience in the tsunami was, to spend a week trying to find equipment. And that's when I realized it's too late when the disaster strikes to buy the equipment that you need. Goodness, since the pandemic, there've been a lot of delays, right? Everyone's seen this. There's a lot of delays in the tech that you want to buy, the gear that you've got. There was a time when we couldn't get transmitters. Like, you really need the gear before you need the gear if you're going to respond quickly. When we were on the ground, it took us, a week to just get on the plane, another week to get buy gear in Singapore and travel out to Indonesia. And by the time we were on the ground, it was another week or two before it was on the air. So like a month had passed. And I was just reflecting on that. And I thought, a month is too slow for emergency radio. People need information right away. What should our goal be? And all the other humanitarian agencies had some kind of 72-hour goal. Search and rescue. It would be pulling people out of the rubble, out of buildings within 72 hours. Humanitarian relief, do assessments on the ground within 72 hours to discover what kind of relief goods need to be distributed. Everyone seemed to have this 72-hour goal. So I thought, well, I guess the first response radio goal should be on the air and broadcasting in 72 hours. And that was a crazy goal. That was an impossible goal unless you really did the homework. And I said, okay, we're going to try. That's our starting point. If you work backwards, what do you have to do? And that was our first lesson: buy your gear before you need your gear. The second lesson was train local staff from the country before to use the equipment. And so we would start to do training events in the Philippines, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, where we would take the equipment in, give them all the equipment, train them to use it, and talk about disaster radio. What is the role of radio in disaster response? You need to understand the UN humanitarian system, how it works, how things are organized, where you get the answers to all of these questions. Someone says, do I have to boil my water or not? Or is it drinkable straight out of the tap under today's circumstances? And all of those answers would come from a different UN cluster group. And so we just learned that we had to teach and train our local partners to be aware of the humanitarian world and what's happening when the disaster response is going on, that they're in the middle of, what their role is and how to add real value to the humanitarian response. But we decided it had to be 72 hours on the air, and 72 hours was our goal. And so we began building a kit. And some of the research work had been done by our UK partners who had squeezed a studio into a Samsonite suitcase. So let's pull up the first slide then, Kirk. It shows the blue.
Hang on a second. Let me make sure I know how to do this here. There we go. Okay.
Yay.
All right.
So this is a blue Samsonite tourist suitcase, and the engineer from our UK partner, Charles Randall, customized off-the-shelf equipment, customized it to fit into the suitcase, to be mounted into the suitcase, and added some custom features that weren't broadcast-ready features from the equipment that was purchased. So to begin with, that was like suitcase number one. That's a studio. Okay. Let's go on with that.
I got a question or two, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's do the questions as they come up, as you think of them, because your listeners are screaming and shouting at the screen also.
This thing, Ranger 4 across the top, looks like a couple of muffin fans in there. What is that?
Oh, yeah. So the computer fans have become the speaker screens. So to make it robust, you don't punch out the speaker. 11 years ago, you asked the same astute question, actually. So that's so everything is really ruggedized. It's in a sealed case, waterproof, airproof, dustproof, and and pretty rugged. So for 20 years, that's what we used. And it slowly upgraded. It was basically the same, but we got rid of, the mini disc player was history, almost as soon as we started. There was a CD player, and then there became a digital audio player, and the various Zoom and digital audio recorders changed over time. But a 7-channel mixer and a couple accessories and a built-in speaker. It stayed pretty stable. So as Randall Concepts built the Randall Ranger, it stayed fairly stable over the 20 years that we used it.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Now, by the way, I don't see a transmitter.
That's right.
Here.
So this is only suitcase number 1. The full radio in a suitcase has 3 full suitcases. So if we go to slide number 2, the second suitcase, your Gator 4-rack unit rolling case. This is, almost my second lesson after you have to buy gear before you need it was it should have wheels. You're going to carry this thing through airports. You're going to drag it places. Everything should have wheels. So the studio is on wheels with a handle. So we shopped around until we found the right flight case that would fit a 600, 700 watt transmitter in and had wheels. And certainly the Gator 4-rack unit rolling case, ideal. And we started out using the BW transmitters. BW went on a pause, at some time, went out of production. We started shopping around for other transmitters. There's a lot of choices, but I would say the only thing that is essential is that you have 2-rack unit size transmitter, 500, 600, 700 watts in that range. And to where you could still use coax cables that have end connector. If you get more powerful, everything gets bigger. Cables are bigger, antennas are bigger, it gets heavier. And so the sweet spot is up to 700 watts is a sweet spot for a transmitter for disaster response radio.
I'm going to guess that if you're in a place where there's been a disaster and maybe not everything arrives, you've got to find something locally. An end connector is a whole lot easier to find than a DIN connector. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, at my stations, I've got end connectors and jumper cables hanging around, and DIN, we can special order those to go with whatever transmitter that we have. I'm curious, do you tend to check this as baggage or carry it on?
No, we'll check this as baggage. And so every piece is maximum 23 kg or, the US pounds, equivalent. That's what the standard suitcase weight is. Sometimes they'll give you more weight allocation, but anywhere in the world, you'll get 23 kg or the pounds equivalent of that. And so that's the goal. Every piece should be checkable as luggage. When we get to the radio in a backpack of the current development, you could hand carry that. We've got some hand carry solutions, but for right now, the gear is big enough. As long as you can check it as luggage, then that's okay. Some organizations were building gear in really, really big flight cases, and they exceeded the maximum checked luggage allowance. So then what do you have to do? You have to take it as shipped freight, and hopefully your shipped freight would get onto the same flight as you were, but you might arrive there without your gear.
All right, so I don't mean to jump off in the weeds here, but considering packing a transmitter in that case that's on the screen right now, do you do anything to support the back of this heavy transmitter? Because I working for 2 different companies, Scott Studios and Telos Alliance, we have shipped things kind of like this, and we've had it show up at the other end as a disaster with the rack rails all bent up and the front panel ripped off the equipment. And so we started, we do it differently now, but really heavy foam between things and to wedge everything in so it didn't move around. Maybe you got a better idea. What do you guys do?
Yes, and you're right about the problem. You're exactly right that you've identified the problem. It didn't take me too long to break a transmitter and go, we have to do that better. Broadcast Warehouse, gave me a couple hints, and they said, look, as long as you don't break, as long as you don't stress the transmitter and break the front rack mount, it is not shock sensitive. It's not like it has, glass tubes, valves in it. So
Right.
you don't need a shock-proofed case. Some people put stuff in mil-spec, a case inside a case with like bungee cords, and like that's so big and that's so heavy. He said, just support the back. So it's a 4-rack unit case. The transmitter is 2 rack units. I take a single rack unit shelf, and in the back, I put one right side up and I put one upside down. I take two single rack unit shelves. There's a rack in the back.
Yeah.
And those things just stop it from vibrating, stop it from shaking, stop the front tabs bending, and that's it.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. So our solution is buy the transmitter of your choice, 2 rack units, get this case, get 2 of these racks, assemble it like this.
So you're supporting it in the back, top and bottom, with because it's got rack rails in the rear too. So you screw those in just top and bottom to keep this leverage moment off of the front. Okay,
Just
good.
Stop it from twisting and bending.
That's really smart.
That's worked great. I have not broken a transmitter since we started doing that. And our 20 plus years of experience, we will build something and then see if it breaks. And if it breaks, we'll build it stronger. And if it doesn't break, we declare it good enough. And I've just spent 20 years breaking stuff and deciding what is good enough and what's light.
And what's really smart about using those 1RU rack shelves is that if you still need to put something in the front above or below the transmitter, you can usually just slide them together. In other words, I was using foam as heavy as I could, but that takes up all the space and you can't really mount anything else in there. But using a rack shelf, you've mostly got all the space available.
That's right. You still have the space. So we put things in the space, the power cable for the transmitter. We have a studio to transmitter cable. We have an audio cable, dual XLR audio cable. We coil that up, pop that into the transmitter case, maybe a bag of tools, like a few other things. We'll just slide down into those little bits of space that you've created. And so you're right. If you don't fill it up with foam, then you can put some of your gear that's transmitter related. We have a lovely little cable adapter, which takes dual XLR, and on the other end, it's some small 3.5 mil mini earphone adapter. Yeah. This is the, feed the transmitter from your iPhone. Feed the transmitter from the laptop that you have. When the studio is broken and it had a power surge and blew up or something like that, no problem. You pull this little cable out, which sits in the transmitter case, and you feed it straight from your laptop or your Android phone, anything. And we assume stuff is going to break in the field, and so there's a backup for everything, inside the system.
Okay. If I could add one more thing, because it's come across in my little side gig engineering from time to time, even recently. If you need to travel light, probably, even though I work for a company that makes awesome audio processors, in this case, the processor that you can usually get with the transmitter, built in the transmitter, is probably good enough. You don't need to bring a separate, Omnia Volt or Omnia 11, as much as we would love you to. I'm guessing that you can put left and right in the transmitter, use the internal processor and stereo generator that a lot of these transmitters can come with, and just use that to get on the air.
Yes, so that's been our experience. Certainly, up until the pandemic, we always used the BW transmitter. They had a very nice DSP, processor built in. Nothing else, besides that was needed. So you do have to shop around a little bit to make sure that some kind of processing, or at least a little bit of limiting, has been included. That people that are operating the station in the middle of a disaster zone in an emergency don't have time to watch levels, don't have time to watch the view meters. And so it's important to have something, but the basic will do the job. And actually about the stereo generator, we would turn the stereo generator off and run mono for extended coverage. The radio receivers will receive your signal, will tune in without noise, at a slightly greater range if you just run mono and you don't run the stereo carrier. So we put all the power into a mono signal. People probably don't care if the stereo image of a genuine stereo track, is there on left and right stereo. Actually, we haven't really had genuine stereo in music, since the 70s, and Bread and some of the old classic bands really used that stereo image. And now it's just equally loud on both channels. So we're just going to run mono. And so that's a setup before we go on air, before we test, before we train. Set it up to left and right combined and mono only, stereo carrier off.
I'm going to guess that PPM encoding is not at the top of the priority list in a disaster zone.
Yeah, anything else that takes up our bandwidth. And so even just, the station ID information that goes out, all of that just pulls a little bit of your power. So the only thing that's essential and important is people can tune in and hear your audio and act on the humanitarian information that's coming out over the radio.
We ready for the next slide?
Yeah, let's go.
All righty, here we go.
Okay, so we need an antenna. We have gone with a very small single dipole antenna. Mm-hmm. So my favorite go-to antenna is from the Labelle company in Italy, and they have one that is up to 800 watts. It's got the N connector, so it's 800 watts power rated, and it breaks down. You see in the right hand photo there, the two ends of the dipole come off, collapse, and fold down, making it very small. Yeah. And we couldn't figure out for the longest time how to carry this as luggage. So a 65 key piano keyboard bag is exactly the right size to carry. This is my absolute top tip of 20 years in disaster radio. 65 key keyboard bag is the thing to carry your antenna. Now you could have, 2-bay, 4-bay directional antennas. It's all just bigger, more cables, more stuff. We are all about light and rapid and agile. If you want to be there and be on the air fast, it matters more that you have a 600 to 700 watt transmitter, some good coax, you whack this antenna up and just get on the air is more important than whether we could do a 2-bay, 4-bay power divider, increased gain. Our experience has been that we would generally get 20 kilometers radius, coverage. And Super Typhoon, Haiyan in the Philippines, we're on the top of a hill. We're on the 4th floor of City Hall. We got double that in coverage. So we're quite happy with just a single bay antenna. And in the case, we have a couple coax cables using that like a LMR 400. So some nice high quality 400 coax cable, one piece at 15 meters, another piece at 20 meters. So you could have like a short cable, a long cable, or put them both together for a super long cable. Sure. And you only need to use as much coax as you need, minimize the loss. If you're on the top floor of a tall building, you use the short cable. If we are running in the studio outside the building, because the building might collapse because it's been shaken by an earthquake, we put all the cables together and run it all the way up 35 meters and keep the studio in a tent or a gazebo outside the building. So when you have a couple different runs of coax, you can do short, medium, or long and put it all together. So we just put all this stuff in the kit, and the adapters to connect the two cables together, an adapter in case someone brings you a transmitter with the DIN connector on the outside. So I'll stick a DIN to N adapter in there. And the last thing in the kit is a little 100 watt dummy load, or 200 to 300 watt dummy load. You can do so much testing with a dummy load. And we've delivered some of these antenna kits to disaster prone areas of the Indian East Coast. So along the Indian East Coast in Odisha, in the past, big typhoon comes ashore and all of the dozen community-based radio stations are off the air. All of the antennas have fallen down. Transmitter's okay, studio's okay, just the antenna blew down. I went out there and did a half-day training project. We carried this kit out and said, this is for when the next cyclone strikes, and taught them how to how to check and repair their own system. I said, if you turn your transmitter on and it says SWR is good or the reflective power is low, great. It might look ugly, but it's fine. Go ahead and turn it on. And if it's broken, take this dummy load and put it on the end of the cable and use the dummy load to step by step come back closer to the transmitter. And then you can say that cable's good. Oh, that cable's good. Oh, this must be bad. And just only replace the components that are faulty. You could do that with a $10,000 analyzer and a TDR and everything. But I just found everywhere in the world that I go, people understand this concept. It's a fake antenna. If you stick the dummy load on and it looks good, then everything up to that point is good, and the problem is somewhere after that. And this just divide and conquer. You can easily tell with a $100 dummy load where the problem is. And so some of those Indian radio stations, they said, so I had a 2-bay antenna and a power divider, and then it didn't work, or it fell down. But if I just found one good bay and the cable was good, I could have put it together and gone back on the air. Yes, you could. Like, oh, we get it now. Because before their systems were installed by engineers from the capital, they'd come out from Delhi and install these community radio stations. But when the storm hits, when the typhoon or hurricane knocks their antenna down, they're not in a hurry to come back and help them. And when they had one of these kits in a typhoon-prone coastline and just a little bit of training, then they were good to go. They said, like, we are no longer helpless. We can do this ourselves.
Nice. I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to ask them now, and we're going to take a quick break, and maybe you can answer them when we come back. Number one is maybe you can relay some advice on places to put an antenna temporarily. Can you put it in a tree? Can you put it on a barn? Can you put it? What are some places that I don't know? If I would stand there, look around, see what's high, and can I get to it? But maybe there's a smarter way. And the thing I love about dummy loads, they make terrible antennas, but they make great troubleshooting devices. And that's what you were relating. Hey, Mike Adams is our guest here on This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. It's time for a quick break to hear from one of our amazing sponsors. And I love these guys. We haven't run an ad for this product in a long time, and I want to remind you about it. And the reason is because I get asked about this all the time. In my full-time job at Telos, I'm often talking with people about phone systems. And people almost always ask me, what should we do for call screening? Well, this ad is a couple years old, but it's still perfectly valid, and this is the best product out there for call screening from Broadcast Bionics. We'll be right back.
X-Screen 2, the simply amazing new way to control, screen and log calls using your Telos HX6, IQ6 or VX TalkShow systems, helping you to get the best calls to air quickly and easily. X-Screen 2 is a powerful touchscreen interface that connects alongside your VSET 6 or VSET 12 handsets, and even enables you to screen directly on your PC using a USB headset or sound card. X-Screen 2 clearly displays the status of lines and hybrids, quickly captures caller details for screening, and automatically stores a log of calls and easily manages station and show directories of important numbers. There's also a scheduling clock and chat window for instant messaging and visual talkback to other X-Screen workstations on the system. As soon as a line rings, the caller's name is displayed, if they've rung before, and we can look up their location. X-Screen also usefully shows how many times they've called before and when they last called. You can add alerts to identify nuisance or persistent callers before you've even answered the call. To route a call to the VSET or headset, simply click on the handset symbol, exactly as you would use the button on the VSET. Using the other icon on the line, we can hold the call or route the call to a hybrid. Selecting an alternative device will change the icon key so you'll always know the destination of the call. The tabs on the right-hand side provide more information and control the selected caller. We can add this caller to a caller directory or create a manual entry for someone we call regularly. Calling someone is as simple as just clicking dial on their entry. A free version of Xscreen is included with your HX6, IQ6 and VX TalkShow system. The full version of the software enables the caller database, directories and alerts and other cloud-based features. All Telos customers can try the full version for 3 months by downloading the free trial. More information is available by contacting Broadcast Bionics or your local dealer.
Indeed, this is my go-to call screener, and I've used it myself for some side projects that I've done to answer calls for broadcast corporate events and things like that, and at our own radio stations too. So check it out from Broadcast Bionics. The website is bionics.co.uk, bionics.co.uk, and your local dealer probably carries this. And if you get a Telos phone system, well, you get to try it out for free for 3 months. So check it out. It's This Week in Radio Tech, episode 782, and Mike Adams is our guest. It's been over a decade since Mike was with us, and Mike, so glad that you contacted me and said, hey, I've got some new stuff to talk about. Shall we continue with the hit parade on your presentation?
Yes, let's go to the next slide, because this is the.
Hey, I was going to ask you. Do
you have more questions? You're right.
For identifying, what are some tall places that are typical to use, or maybe what's an unusual place to hang your antenna?
Right. So we tell everybody that you need to get your antenna up 20 meters off the ground. Okay. So that would be, you need a 20-meter mast, or a pole, antenna, or tower, or better, on the top of a 3 or 4-story building, and then just a very short stick, on the top of a building. But your other suggestion was what we always tell our teams: look for the water tank. Oh. The water tank is always on the highest point in the building. Find the water tank, stick this on top of the water tank. Yeah. Or wherever it is, this should be there also. Yeah. And so top of the building, it's important that you train the way you're going to operate, So even in our field exercise, in our training class, we go out to the field for 3 days, and we'll make people do it exactly the right way, not just set it up, on the ground, on the grass, just for a test when there's a tall building right next door. So in the training event, it's always look for the highest point that you have access to, and let's figure out how to get it up there. Mm-hmm. And we've also, when you put an antenna up, or you put a 10-foot bamboo pole on the top of the highest point of the building, the anchor points are not going to be identically 120 degrees spaced. It's not going to be right. So we always do 4 anchor points, because you just can't be sure. Mm-hmm. You can't be sure where you're going to anchor it to. Is it going to be guided properly? And and here's my other favorite tip. I learned this from my British ham radio club here. If you guy it with 4 guy ropes, evenly spaced, as the mast is coming up, then the two side, the left and right guy wires, keep the same tension all the way up. Mm. You lay this thing on the ground, you stake out the lines to the side, to the left and to the right, tension them, tighten them off, and as you're standing the mast up, it has tension all the way. You don't have to worry about it wobbling left or right. Yeah. You should tie off the back guy before you pull it up to the front.
I was going to say, make sure there's somebody there with that one. I haven't tied up. Otherwise, whoa.
And if you can even estimate, it's going to be the same length as the side guy. So I just measure it out to the side. I hold that, I bring it around to the back, and I stake it off, and I leave all the guy wire looped up there. And then a few guys lifting and a few people pulling from the other side, and it's guyed all the way up. It's calm. There's no shouting. There's no danger. So that's what we're teaching people now. Just get a 10-meter pole, like max height, 30 feet ish, and do 4 guy wires, not 3, and you'll find these advantages of putting it together like that.
Yeah, because everything you just said, the advantages of 4 guy wire, that doesn't come into play if you only have 3. You can't pre-tension, because they're all going to be in.
That's right. They change. They get looser or they get tighter as they go up. But if you do them straight out to the side, keeps tension all the way. It's a sweet thing. Engineers, people designing stuff love to get away with the minimum amount, but in disaster response and raising stuff in crazy places, I've just found 4 guy wires always good. We have a special technique that we teach only the pros. We've put up a 20 meter, so 65 foot floppy bamboo mast.
Wow.
In the middle of a field. We took over a football field soccer field in Indonesia, in Bali. And I got all of my teams from the whole world together. And if you do the same technique, 4 guy wires, but you to the base of the mast, you lash another pole, and you pull from that, and you bring the guy wires up. That when you're lifting, you can pull back on this lifting pole. And they call it the British call it the gin pole technique. And I've successfully lifted a floppy, wibbly wobbly guide at the middle, guide at the top, mast made out of green bamboo. And that it just makes it possible to do the impossible. When you're out there and you're in Darfur and it's just a flat desert and you really need to get it up taller than you don't have a crane. It's too floppy. You can't just push it up. Then I get my pro team out and we will use the lifting pole, the gin pole technique. So this is all what we've learned and practiced and trialed and perfected over 20 years. What's doable, what's easy, what's tough, and what's okay. And we just aim for it. Just get the job done and just get it up.
It's absolutely fascinating to see what people can do when they put their mind and some intelligence behind it. I've been on a tropical island in the Caribbean, maybe it was St. Lucia, where some people were raising a tower, very small crew, and they were and no mechanical. It was men pulling on ropes to do that. And I'm just reminded, I worked at a radio station in Kentucky. There was a 3-tower AM directional. And the towers were all just a hair under 200 feet each. They weren't lighted, but a single man, a friend of mine by the name of Hannes Shane, put the 3 towers up pretty much by himself. He had a little bosun, chair, and he would lift himself. The guy was super strong, and it's just amazing what you can do. And that idea of what you're calling a gin pole now. I'm used to a gin pole being something that attaches to a tower, but you're talking about a ground-based gin pole just to give you leverage on the midpoint and the top of the tower you're pulling up. Wow.
And I think the British said this, and I don't understand. I know gin pole the way you just described it. And they said, well, think of it more like this is like a barge comes into the wharf and they're unloading stuff, and you don't have a mechanical crane, and they would do this. They would do this to lift cargo out of the ships and onto the wharf. And so it was a dockman's kind of trick or skill. And the ham radio clubs here in the UK have adopted it for putting up 65-foot high scaffolding pipe for a 2-meter field day. And so I took lessons learned from my hobby and combined them with my day job. And that was one that's been to great advantage. We had a place in Indonesia, Sumatra. We responded to an earthquake, and the building had these wild and crazy spikes on the top of it. So it was pointy in the middle, and it came out to points and spikes, and it was all tiled. You couldn't get on the roof. You couldn't get onto the top of the building. And so we had to just, poke the antenna out the window. It's a dipole. We put it on an extender, and we clamped it to a pole that we just lashed into the window frame and went out the window on the side facing the community. The building was on the beach, so we didn't care about radiation in the other direction. The only wrong answer is to put it on the ground where there's buildings all around. You've got to get it up high. And my colleague was on the ground in Mozambique and he looked up. He said, "What would Mike do?" And he's standing there and he looks, and the highest thing is a water tower with a water tank on the top with little pseudo rusty ladders going up. And he goes, "Sure, that's where it's going to go." And it worked great. So we teach teams to innovate and think about where's the high place.
Well, let's get back into the studio here. So tell me about what we're moving on here with.
We came to a point of making it upgrading or making a next generation version of what our studio was going to be. And there was a time when we had a request after the beginning of the Ukraine war. UN agency said, Mike, we need 10 radio in a box kits. And they just couldn't be produced that fast with our current partner. And I just realized that everything in the world, all of this capacity building depended on Randall Concepts and depended on me buying and assembling all these kits and selling them out. And we thought, what we really need is a solution where everybody can build everything for themselves. And this was my pandemic project. When I was locked down and I couldn't travel to India and other countries and work in Asia, in my pandemic project, I started thinking about what could we do, or what kind of off-the-shelf stuff would be completely functional and ready to go without modification, that anybody could buy it and anybody could assemble it. And so I spent a lot of time quizzing all my other engineering friends from around the world, people who worked in Africa, worked in South Asia, Pakistan, everyone who'd worked with me for 20 years or had done similar work. What is your best kit? What is your best practice? What have you thrown out of the kit? What have you kept in the kit? And so we started, 5 of us engineers, we ordered a bunch of stuff. And we had a big, engineering play day where we had a build fest and we started building a studio. And what we've come up with, now that was great. Some funder gave us some money to buy a bunch of equipment and give it a try. And so what you see on the screen in the picture there, we love the podcast mixers that you can buy in the market these days. We've chosen the Tascam, the Mixcast 4. It's very similar to the Rodecaster mixer that a lot of folks I know are using out in the field. And it was just a couple advantages that we liked over this one. So, a laptop and a cell phone that can connect to it. What I love about these podcast mixers is they've designed them for home studios and people without a lot of broadcast, radio engineering, skill. They're really, really simple to use. And all of those features that we used to add on are built in. So we used to have an external Bluetooth interface. It's built in. Back in the early days, we used to have an external USB interface before they started building them into mixers. Well, now they're built in. And so there's just there's an internal recorder. There's an internal playback of music or station IDs. And these are all things that we used to add on after we installed the mixer in the kit. And so I'm really pleased with that. We still use the same radio headsets, the sportscasters. Imagine you're at a basketball game or something in a really loud, stadium. Like, how are you going to get a good audio quality? Like these headsets with a really nice directional mics, and a couple of field recorder kits go into this kit. So in the past, everybody used a Zoom digital audio recorder or something like that, some form of digital audio, dedicated recorder in the field. But, following the Ukraine crisis, the UN agency said, Mike, nobody wants a digital recorder. Everyone uses their phone.
Yeah.
And the only downside, I've always told our teams, we don't use phones because they don't have a microphone. And you really need the windsock when you're outside, and you need a little bit of directionality, and you need a quality mic. Well, instead of just saying no, I said, well, let's research what the right answer is. And so we found a great Rode mic that clips into a mobile phone, turning your mobile phone into a professional digital audio recorder. We looked at really cheap mics at $20. We looked at expensive, wireless mics at $300. And this one beat them all at $50 or 50 pounds. The Rode Video Me mic that just plugs into a mobile phone is brilliant for turning a mobile phone into your digital audio recorder in the field. Those are the essential bits of our new kit. But on the bottom, we mentioned the 15-watt mini FM transmitter and antenna. We face a number of different scenarios where even a small station would do a lot of good. 15 watts would cover 5 kilometers, but 3 miles radius. So 6 miles, 10K side to side. You could cover a zone of that size with a really small mini FM transmitter. And before, I would never use anything less than 600 watts. It's got to be a real man-sized transmitter, or it's not worth putting up. And I came to realize in some small community scenarios, the scenario that we're going to talk about next, that I've been working in the Mideast, you could cover 1 million people with a teeny tiny transmitter in the right community and in the right scenario. And all of these items, the other great thing about them together is they work on internal batteries or 12 volts. The Tascam mixer runs on 12 volts. The Rodecaster works on 12 volts. But they have a wall wart AC adapter, right? Well, I just threw away the AC adapter. I bought a 12 volt power bank and manufactured a cable to go from the mixer to the power bank. We have a 12 volt power bank that'll run the whole studio and the mini transmitter for 8 hours. When the power goes down, the station keeps running. And we had a capability of battery operated in the past, but it was only 2 hours. And I bought this power bank and we just gave it a try. And all day long while we were testing, it was running, or it was powered up and running. And we reckon 8 hours is a very reasonable operating time to be on the power bank. You can charge it, off of the AC power, and then when the power fails, it's going to keep you up for 8 hours, or a solar panel. Before, if you needed to run a 600 watt FM transmitter, you really couldn't do it on solar. It was just too big, too many panels, too much stuff, too much weight. But if you're just trying to run a little mini 7 watt or 15 watt mini FM, you can run it off at 12 volts and hardly draw any power at all. So as we started to work in more environments where power really is an issue, power really can be a problem. Following the storm in Jamaica back in October, some of the places it's not going to be fully powered up until the end of January. Still, there's a lot of communities, no power. And so to have a radio station that runs on solar or power when it has it, or can run on the generator, and when the generator goes down for refueling, keep the station on the air. And so I love the components because they can all run off of 12 volts. You get a laptop with a battery that'll run 8 hours. The whole thing can run offline, off grid for 8 hours. And then when I realized we'd thrown out all of these other components and we didn't have a whole lot left in the kit, it would fit in a backpack. And someone said, my podcaster team are going across North Africa and they need something small and light. And I thought, what if we got a backpack? Could we squeeze it all into a backpack? And the answer was yes. So we have one version that is like Pelican case, flight case mounted, that opens and is fully ready to go. And another version where we put it into a backpack. And I happen to have one here with me now, if we want to spend some of our last 10 minutes or 8 to 10 minutes.
Tell you what, we've actually this is so interesting that I've been irresponsible on my commercial breaks. We need to take a couple more breaks, and let's take one of them right now. It's This Week in Radio Tech. Mike Adams is our guest, and he's got fascinating stories to tell about rapid response radio, and he's going to show us what's in the backpack here in just a minute. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Henry Engineering, and one of my favorite products, the Back UPS. You can get it from Broadcaster's General Store. Let's hear all about it. We'll be right back.
Our show is brought to you in part by Henry Engineering and a product called Back UPS. This is a little bit like automation. In other words, it works when you need it to all by itself. So, the problem with UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, is that a little bit too often they do get interrupted. And if you've ever had to change the batteries in a UPS, you still got to think about, well, what's hooked to this UPS? What is powering? What is it powering? And just a great example is if you've got equipment in an equipment rack that has two power supplies, like servers, some broadcast equipment, not all, certainly not all, but some broadcast equipment has two power supplies. You can plug these into two different things, commercial power directly, or plug the other one into a power strip fed by a UPS. Great. Well, there's lots of broadcast gear or things that you need to run 24/7 that only have one power supply and one power cord. So what do you do with that? Well, of course, you run them from the UPS, but what happens when the UPS dies? And that has happened to me before. I've told you the stories before, and I don't need to tell you again, but they die. And then you've really got a problem. You are super duper off the air because you've got commercial power right there and your stuff's not running. And maybe you've got something like an Ethernet switch that takes literally 5 minutes to boot up. Boy, that's terrible. Well, Back UPS from Henry Engineering is a solution for this. Yes, you can buy much bigger AB switches that operate automatically for AC power. The Back UPS is far more reasonably priced. It's pretty much designed to have one of these per rack, one per rack where you have a UPS. And so you plug commercial power into one input and you plug your UPS into the other input. And normally it's on the UPS. Normally it's the UPS input that's providing power to the duplex outlets on the other side of it. But when the UPS dies, it switches over to commercial power, and then you can set the delay time for it to come back on the UPS. Let's say the UPS is chattering and it produces power sometimes, but not always. Well, you can set the delay time to where you have some surety that things are good before it switches back to the UPS. Now, I've got this exact box, and I think we've bought 5 of these so far at my stations, and we sure could use a few more. But we put them in the racks, and we feed equipment that only has one power supply. I've got some workstations with only one power supply. I've got audio processors with only one power supply. I've got Ethernet switches and a Sage NDEC and other pieces of gear that have only one power supply. But with the Back UPS, it's almost like you've given them 2 power supplies. At least you've given them 2 power sources, and it'll switch back and forth automatically. One of the slickest products from Henry Engineering since the Super Relay, and you know how much we love that one. So check it out from Henry Engineering. The place to get it is from Broadcasters General Store, BGS. The website is bgs.cc. bgs.cc, and they keep improving their website. It's really nicely up to date. When I need to find a price on something or some specs, or hey, is this still available? I go to bgs.cc, and you can call them too. They're really friendly on the phone at 352-622-7700.
Welcome back. It's This Week in Radio Tech. Kirk Harnack here. My guest is Mike Adams. Mike was on before, like 11 years ago, and they've had some improvements and changes. And the world of broadcast equipment and the whole podcasting business has brought about some new pieces of equipment that are helpful to broadcasters, especially in this rapid response sort of area. And we have got a fun camera angle now on Mike Adams. There he is. Mike, I'm going to make you full screen so you can show what's going on here. Looks like a backpack.
There. So we've got the radio in a backpack. Shall we unpack it and see what's inside?
All right. Deal. Yes, I'll go traipsing across disaster-prone areas with this backpack.
So I've got IKEA style instructions inside, and it says to begin with, lay everything out like this on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then nice. I've got another set of IKEA style instructions, which says connect the power like this, and connect the audio connections like this. And I reckon it takes me sort of 6 to 8 minutes. So we have my favorite podcast mixer. So we've got the Tascam Mixcast 4 mixer.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 4 mic channels, and it's got a number of inputs, and it's got a channel for Bluetooth. It's got a channel for USB, connect your phone, and these lovely pads that will play music or station IDs from the mixer. So we'll begin by just setting that out on the table. We've got a laptop in the bag. So laptop goes next to the mixer. and we power everything by the power bank. And so our power bank has a number of 12-volt connectors and a couple of USB connectors.
Oh, nice.
So the power bank will sit down here. We've got a speaker bar, so speaker bar to listening to our production. There is a great feature in the Tascam that when you open up a microphone, you can mute the speaker output. So just like broadcast studio mic muting in the studio, that's a feature or a function that you can include. You can set that up in the Tascam. Okay, so he plays our output. What else have we got in the bag here? So I've got a box of accessories. I've got a lovely Tupperware box of accessories, and everything else is in there. We've I think one of the clever things we were talking about before was running it all on 12 volts.
Yeah.
And you can do that with the 12-volt power cable. We've just made a special power cable that has the special Tascam connector on one end and the standard 12-volt connector on the other end. So that'll allow us to power the mixer.
So that Tascam connector, it looks like a captive connector.
Yes, that's right. So it screws in and locks in place so that in the middle of the emergency broadcast, you don't get a tripped, cable pull. And so it's a very clever feature, but we had to find the exact right connector to manufacture a cable that would run it off of 12 volts.
We're actually using that same captive 12-volt connector on some equipment from Telos in the Infinity intercom line, and I think it's a great solution. It's very secure, and yet it is attainable. So yeah, smart choice there.
So it is the only cable that we manufacture and that the engineer has to build themselves. And we've found some custom cable companies that will build some of our customized stuff for us. So I think we're looking to see if we can even outsource that one and make sure that things are very easy to use and very easy to find. So, what else is in the big bag? This is when you're working in disaster response and all of the lights have gone out, it's really nice to have a light, and we just mount this on the laptop, and it also powers off of the power bank. It's USB powered, LED power light. Super handy when it's all dark and the power has failed to be able to get power from the. So these are the key components. We will. We've got a power supply for the power bank. We've got a power supply for the laptop. And they all join together on one cable, one connector, IEC connector that will hook you up to the AC power. Sure. But just by way of demonstration, today we have no AC power available to us. We turn on the power bank here, and then we can turn on the mixer here. It lights up. Did you notice we color coded a lot of stuff? Sure. Have you ever been there in the studio? Everyone grabs a black microphone and you open up the wrong fader.
Yes, exactly. One thing to note is that your laptop doesn't get power through the power bank because it has its own batteries, doesn't it?
That's right. It has its own batteries, but that is why we've got the two power supplies there. One power supply runs the laptop. One power supply powers the power bank.
Do you happen to know
the number of times we've come into a room and they've said, "Here's your one socket. You have to connect everything to this socket." It's really nice to have one single plug to plug everything in. Well, let's see how we're doing here. So from the main mixer, we have 4 mic channels. We use our headset mic, and I do love these. I do love the built-in sound effects and station IDs. Let's see if we've got sound coming out now. Way. Okay. We on the sound effects, you can also put in a station ID or your favorite song.
Mm-hmm.
This one is in Filipino. Boil your water for 2 minutes before you drink it so your children don't get sick. And it's been put into a message.
Kung di mo matiyak na malinis ang tubig, huwag mo tong.
So I do love that we can have station IDs, we can have information loaded on here, and you can record to the laptop, or you have a big red record button. Also, you can record to the SD card in the mixing desk. So all of these things that we used to add on are internal features. There are 4 independent micro earphone controls.
Oh, yeah, right there.
For 4
Okay.
different people.
Nice.
Everyone gets to control their own earphone. And just all of these things that we used to add on are all built in. And so we realized that if you can do all of this and you can fit it into a backpack, then you can be truly, truly mobile. Even the Mini FM fits into the same backpack. I'm going to grab it here. The whole 15-watt FM is only this big. I can also squeeze this down into the backpack once I debox it from the cardboard box. So I just love how small and light and agile it is, and that we can run offline with the power bank. Why don't we come back to our main mics then, or to the main camera?
Oh, okay.
And we'll just finish out with the last slide, or how much time we've got left. Then.
And actually, we'll look at a slide or two, and then we'll have one more quick break, and then we'll come back to you for a tip of the week. So that we'll do that in a minute. Let's see. So there's the contents generally of the kit you just showed us, and I guess you want to go to the next slide, right?
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Thanks.
All right. There we go.
So once we got this so small, the other thing, it's easy to carry, but it's unobtrusive. It doesn't look like pro audio gear. And I've been supporting a UN agency, UNICEF, to build a radio station that will serve the people of Gaza who have to get humanitarian information. They need information about food, water, shelter, healthcare, all of these things. And every radio and TV station has been off the air since the beginning of the war 2 years ago.
Wow.
So I thought, well, prototype number 1 of the studio in a backpack went into Gaza. In the picture on the left, I've flown into Cairo, Egypt, and handed it over to UNICEF. And then on the picture on the right, UNICEF staff member went in a convoy of UN jeeps to Gaza through Rafah and delivered it to our station manager there. And it was small, and it didn't attract any attention, and they weren't concerned about it at all. It was only the studio. It was only the studio components, but we were able to send that in to Gaza. And in the next slide, because we had a studio, someone said, if you transmit from outside, if you're able to broadcast from the mountains in Hebron, then you could beam a signal from Hebron down into Gaza. Whereas we didn't have access for transmission equipment to go into Gaza, we could broadcast from the Palestinian territory with a license from the local authority. And so right now, starting last month, there is a humanitarian radio station that can be heard across the entire Gaza Strip. I went to find a tower there. And then in the last slide, you see the components that we use to do the job. I get another 700-watt transmitter from Alenos and a couple directional antennas stacked on the tower. A pair of directional Yagis pointing in the right direction gave us an amazing signal downhill into Gaza on the ocean at sea level.
Yeah.
And so just trying to help the humanitarian community figure out a way to provide communications phones went down, internet went down.
Oh, wow.
It's been, even when they repaired the internet, it's unstable. And more lines and underground cable and fiber optic cables are broken, and connectivity fails again. So it's been a long project. It's been a 2-year project to get a studio on the ground, to empower people to make local programs, and alongside UNICEF and the other UN and humanitarian agencies, and to get a transmission set of equipment set up in Hebron. All of this with local partners and local agencies. It's the toughest project I've done. It's been a long haul on this one, but it was a great place to use a studio in a backpack.
Sure.
We've got another one in production right now, heading off to Jamaica. And so we ran a workshop when I was there, just training our local Palestinian colleagues in the importance of communications, communicating with our Gazan colleagues, and what people really need to know, what Gazan voices say on the ground, what is important or essential to them now. So I think that's our last slide.
You know, if I could make a comment, years ago in '93, we had a big ice storm in Mississippi, and it took out power. Some communities were without power for 6 weeks. In Cleveland, Mississippi, where we had just, a year before started the radio station, we were the only station on the air for almost 100 miles. It was just a huge area of no radio. Towers were down, power lines were down for, in aggregate, hundreds of miles of power lines, even the big 3-phase cross-country power. Our local power generating plant was shut down, and they needed power to start back up, and they had no power. So we ended up getting volunteers brought us generators, and then the National Guard brought us a generator, and our tower was bent like an S under the weight of ice. Yeah. If it did fall down, it would hit the produce section at Kroger. But anyway, we were the only thing on the air, and thank goodness we were on the. And so the radio station became the point of contact for blankets and diapers and milk and all the things that just people needed to keep their kids warm and healthy. That was interesting. The radio station became the point to bring things and pick things up.
Yes. And if this happens in a developed country, in the Western world, that we can also be out of power and lost comms, then even more so in the developing world. And a number of agencies have said, well, we will use whatever radio station is still on the air to air our programs of humanitarian relief. But many times there is nothing left standing or on the air or powered. And so that's why our strategy is to be independent. After the 3 suitcases, 1 generator that runs 2 kilowatts, and a box of radios to hand out to the community members. And that's everything. That's the whole communications infrastructure replaced with portable and temporary equipment.
Mike, we got to take our last quick break, and we could talk for 2 hours. We really could. There's so fascinating, the things that you do. We're going to try to sum it up with you when we come right back with a tip of the week, things that you'd like for us to walk away knowing, or some resources to learn about it. I'm Kirk Harnack. It's This Week in Radio Tech. So glad that you've joined us for this episode with Mike Adams and the Rapid Response Radio and the ideas that he and his colleagues have for radio stations that you can bring somewhere and be on the air. We'll be right back with Mike's tip of the week.
Our show This Week in Radio Tech brought to you in part by a couple of great sponsors. One of them is Angry Audio. Don't get mad, get Angry Audio. And you know how much I love their stuff. And one of the things that I really love is their Rave audio console. Now, they've been shipping this puppy for about a year now, and it is gorgeous. Not only gorgeous, it's really heavy duty built. You got to use both hands to lift this thing because it is made out of some strong metal, and it's just brilliant the way it clamshells together with the buttons and LEDs and faders on the top and the electronics on the bottom. It is just so cool. I'm telling you, Mike Dosh is a genius in the audio console world. And you're going to love this audio console from Angry Audio. It has things like 2 stereo output mix buses, program and audition. That's pretty standard. It does have preview or cue on every input. Channels 1 through 4 are switchable between mic and line, and the mic preamps are built in, and they're on XLR connectors. On-off buttons are slightly recessed, so you prevent accidental actuation there. See, really intelligent design here. Channels 5 and 6, they're switchable between Pro levels and IHF levels. IHF, what's that? That's the minus 10 level that you often see with unbalanced designs. It has an ergonomic wrist rest. Channels 7 and 8 are capable of mix minus. There are 2 mix minus outputs with talkback. On-air indicator that lights up when the mics are open and the monitors are muted. That's right on the console. You can see on the console, hey, is there any mic on, right? Dedicated meters for both of the output mixes. Long throw faders for the monitor and for the headphone volume. So that's pretty cool too. And around the backside, it's got the Studio Hub connectors for all of your audio, except mics. They do have XLRs for the mics because people want that. And the mic preamps are just studio grade. They are amazing. Plus, you can turn on 48 volt phantom power for your mic preamps. They are very low noise. You got to check this thing out. This is just a beautiful, beautiful console. The Rave, it's totally analog. It's an analog console. It's great for podcast production. Of course, you can use it on the air, production rooms. But man, this console is really beautiful and built. You shouldn't have to replace this console as long as you're in the business. It is really well built. Check it out from Angry Audio. The website is angryaudio.com. And of course, you can buy it from any of your favorite broadcast equipment dealers. All right. Next, I want to talk about our friends at Max Connect. One of the things that Josh Bone, the owner of Max Connect, he has done is he's made a partnership with Audio Science, and Audio Science makes this tuner card that is super duper flexible. Well, they have several different models. There's an AM and FM and weather band model. There's an AM FM and AM HD FM HD model, and these have separate antenna inputs for the 2 different kinds. Of course, if you have different antennas that are optimized for receipt of AM and FM and weather band. But he's put all these into a 1 RU box. It's called the Max Connect RMT 416 because it can be up to 16 receivers. You don't have to buy 16. You can buy it in smaller quantities if you want to. It's available with different numbers of tuners in it in blocks of 4. But man, this thing is so cool. One of the you can remote into it with a web interface. That's pretty cool. So you can tune the tuners, lock them in. And speaking of lock them in, you can lose power. And when it comes back up, they're on the same stations. Isn't that important? I mean, how many times have you fussed with tuners for your monitoring off air and you lose power or unplug it or something and you got to go retune it again? And nobody at the station but you, the engineer, knows how to do that. So check this out. You can monitor all of it also with SNMP. If you are into SNMP, you got that. Oh, each tuner will stream as well through an built-in IceCast server. So yeah, you can listen remotely with no problem. Check out just all the features at the Max Connect website at MAXXKONNECT, Max Connect. I know it's spelled funny, but there's a link in the show notes. MaxConnect.com. Check it out. Yeah, there's some features right there on your screen. Man, up to 16 tuners at once, and it is so cool. Yeah, check this thing out. Gives you lots of data too about each signal and how well it's doing. Thanks, Max Connect, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Check out all our services, especially Max Connect Wireless, to get you reliable 4G LTE data. Okay, it is time to get a tip of the week with Mike Adams. And man, I bet you could talk for 2 hours about a tip of the week. So what might you leave?
It's easy to get Mike talking. It's hard to get him to stop. So here's my final message. We want to give away all our solutions. We've spent 20 years, building equipment, and we have our new next generation solution. We have a shopping list. We would love to give away the shopping list. It's an Excel spreadsheet with all the links. You just click on the links, or you find the relevant model and part number in your country and where you are. So everything is on there. My favorite little fuzzy microphone that goes on to cell phones, the little Rode mini mic. Love this. Everything that we buy, everything that goes into our kit, it's on one spreadsheet. We'll make it available. So we'll put my email address here, or get in touch through This Week in Radio Technology. So we want to give away how we build this kit. And the second thing, if you want training materials, all our classes, all our modules have training manuals to go with them. We're happy to give away our equipment technology, our equipment solutions, and our training manuals. We want everybody to learn from what we've learned. We've done it the hard way. We've learned it the hard way. I'm going to give it away for free now, and happy to work with anybody who wants to do more of this.
We'll look in the show notes for links to what Mike's talking about, and we'll have it in there. Mike, it's been a pleasure to see you again after 11 years and to have you back on the show. And I'm so glad that you're enjoying some retirement now. How's the grandpa thing going?
We are close to the grandchildren. That's great. And I can take time off if I want to. I can be as busy as I want to. But for me right now, this is my primary effort, is giving away everything that we've learned. Once I've given it away, I feel that I can fully step back from work and retire. So if you want to engage with us, anybody out there, any of the listeners, then you're helping Mike retire.
I hear you. Yeah, it's nice to see your work be available to others to carry on, and they don't have to stub their toe as much as you have over time. So, Mike, thank you so much for being with us. I wish you joy in retirement, and I wish that people would take advantage of what you have learned over the years. So, thanks very much.
It's been so much fun today.
Don't hang up. Got a couple more things. We'll be right back. I'm Kirk Harnack at This Week in Radio Tech. Thanks to Suncast for editing and publishing our show as usual. And I have really enjoyed being here in Spain, doing a few shows while we are seeing our grandkids here in Pontevedra. So we got to go. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.